Every day we are affected by design. Our attention has become a commodity. It is pulled at, interrupted, and disrupted at every turn.
Design is about solving problems. Design is about coming together to meet a moment, a need, whatever, with a lot of different pieces contributing to the end result.
What you define as like a successful designed project from your own perspective? Is it about that invisibility that like, I designed that well?
Design for me is actually when people take ownership of it themselves. So when people feel comfortable enough within a space that they take ownership of it, it's not about me at all. It's actually about how people experience the space. It is about when people start to defend the space as their own.
The wonderful thing about working at IKEA is that we believe that making mistakes is how we learn. And so when we make a mistake, we then can correct it. And it's the correcting where the learning happens.
Every mistake is like a devastating failure. It's not real. Like, these are just redirections. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you grow.
All design is ultimately about how you feel. When you throw on an outfit that is designed perfectly to suit who you are and it expresses you as a person, it's a beautiful feeling. When you decorate your home in a way that expresses who you are, it's a beautiful feeling.
We are so very excited to welcome you to this event, Design in Plain Sight, and to the first ever Design Week Calgary. Once again, we're almost at the end of it, amazingly enough. Can't believe it. It's been a fantastic few days with a great range of design-focused events. I hope that many of you or all of you have had the chance to enjoy what Design Week has had to offer. So, as with our other events, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement that we are gathering on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Iharhe Nakota Nation. Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and to the Otipemisiwak Métis government, Métis Nation Battle River Territory. You think I'd have this down by now. Nose Hill Métis District 5 and Elbow Métis District 6. We honor and thank the past, present, and future stewards of this land. And of course, we must thank our sponsors who embraced the vision and put their full support behind this idea, including Design Week's official partner, Contemporary Calgary, venue partner, the Beltline Urban Mural Project, Alberta Real Estate Foundation, Public Eye, the City of Calgary, Downtown Strategy, Leopold's Tavern, thanks for the drink tickets, Create Construction, Montauk Sofa, Calgary Municipal Land Corp, HCMA Architects, GEC Architects, and Cumlin Sullivan Architects. As well, this festival wouldn't be possible without event partners stepping up. Special thanks to d.talks for sponsoring this event. So Calgary's first official Design Week has put a spotlight on the creative talent and energy in our city. From architecture to fashion, public art to storytelling, design shapes the way we live, connect, and dream as a city. This week has been an opportunity for our design community to step forward, share work with the public, start new conversations, and maybe even spark some unexpected collaborations. I sure hope so. To all the designers, organizers, partners, and volunteers, thank you for saying yes. And to you and all our guests, thank you for showing up and supporting this initiative. So again, a big welcome to you, to Design Week Calgary, and to this event. We hope you enjoy yourselves. Now I would like to introduce a very special guest to say a few words, our amazing Mayor Jyoti Gondek.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? It has been an amazing Design Week, and let me kick it off by also greeting you in the mother languages of the Treaty 7 Indigenous peoples. So Oki, Daranastada, Ambawastich, and Tansei. to all of you. I am just so excited to be a part of this. When Shannon asked me if I would come and if I would speak tonight, I said absolutely. And then I thought, I don't even know what I'm going to say because there's so much to say. But I promise you I'll keep it brief. My history with Design Talks goes back to about 2013 or 14 when I was first asked to do a panel, very much like the one that you're going to see tonight. And it sparked something in me. It made me think about city building in a whole different way. And then I had the opportunity to serve on the board, which was incredible, served with so many great people. And then I became a counselor and now the mayor. And I can tell you the common thread that has held my love of design this entire time, it matters. I was interviewed this week a couple of times about why does Design Week matter? And I just felt like a kid saying, it just matters and that's it. But it matters because it makes you feel. So if we think about cities as the intersection of people and places, both of those things matter, and how they connect matters as well. All of us have certain ties to place. I don't know if any of you have ever had the experience where you have lost someone you love, and when you walk past their room or you go past a restaurant that you used to frequent with them, it hurts your heart a little bit because you miss them. Place makes us feel, and the way we design place brings emotion to the forefront. And that's something that I don't think we talk about enough. We're very good at talking about technical things, right? Like we're really good at talking about setbacks, and we're great at talking about access and egress and all of those things, but we don't like talking about feelings. But design, all design, is ultimately about how you feel. When you throw on an outfit that is designed perfectly to suit who you are and it expresses you as a person, it's a beautiful feeling. When you decorate your home in a way that expresses who you are, it's a beautiful feeling. So the thing I want to say about Design Week is thank you everyone who pulled this off and made us feel something this week. It is an underrated thing to talk about the emotion of city building, and design is the thing that drives that emotion. People love visiting places that are beautiful. Did you ever go on a holiday and say, you know why I loved Rome? Because the setbacks are so wonderful. No, you said you loved Rome because of the things that you saw and the experiences that you had. And so for all of you that are here tonight and everyone who has organized this event, thank you for remembering that beauty is an important thing to bring forward and that design matters so much. So I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks for participating all week, and I wish you all a great evening.
Well, that's how you kick it off. This is great. Hi there, all. My name is Myke Atkinson. I'm going to be the moderator for your chat this evening. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of grounding because I think what we're all in for tonight is it's going to be fun. We've got three amazing panelists, but they're all coming to this from very different worlds of design. We've got Jonny, an architect. We've got Jennifer, an interior designer. And we've got Rosie, an information designer. And I hope that as you've been experiencing the last couple of days, maybe like I have, you've been going out to these different things and you've been soaking it up. But I've actually found that I've really enjoyed not just diving into the worlds that I love. I know. I come from a service design background. I'm involved in sort of an advocacy and city building side of things. And I obviously loved attending events on that side of things. But I've also taken so much pleasure, just even in the very opening remarks, talking about sustainability in clothing. That's not a world I ever knew anything about. And I took things from that and learned from that, and hopefully will be able to build that into my own practice and the way that I am able to do design and look at the world and take that going forward. And so that is what I'm hoping that you can all come to this today. Maybe you're an architect, so maybe you'll relate in a lot of ways to what Jonny's going to be bringing about in his talk. But I think you will also be able to find those threads and weave them together and bring those different pieces of design together into something. And that's what we're going to do at the end. If you've got questions, please jot them in your phone, whatever. We will have a little bit of a chance to have some questions from the audience. But we're going to have a conversation at the end that will hopefully stitch these different worlds of design. Design is about solving problems. Design is about coming together to meet a moment, a need, whatever, with a lot of different pieces contributing to the end result, right? We need to be thinking about who we're designing for. We have the client that we're designing for. We have to take into the constraints of a project. We have to take into account accessibility. All these different factors can all come together. But when design goes right, it makes the project just sing in a way that is just, I don't know, it's magic. It's magic. And it doesn't matter what the discipline is. The process of solving that problem, coming together through that process is design. And that's what we're going to experience tonight. So with that, I'm going to throw you over to our first speaker, and that is Rosie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rowaz. You can call me Rosie. And some of you may know me from you guys might be my students. Actually, I teach at the post-secondary level. I'm seeing waves in the back. Hi. I teach interior design. I teach information design. I teach architecture. I'm just an art person, and I love that we're here gathered today to talk about design in general. And I really want to bring attention to a field that I've grown very fond of, which is information design. It is the one that I'm targeting right now in my career, and it is one that's really just been kind of like the silent lurker in every design discipline. It's there, it's effective, it doesn't really want any sort of appreciation. It just wants to show up, do its job, and then hide in the shadows, and it's enough for that. So I always refer to information design as the silent designer. So think about how you navigate an airport or a subway station or even a hospital. These are all very complex, high-pressure environments. You're stressed out, you need to be somewhere, you don't really want to look at signs, you just want to enter a space and be guided. You want that sense of ease. When you think about information design and when you think about how it exactly guides us through our everyday lives, it does so by the use of colors and shapes and fonts and graphics and text. It does it in such a seamless way that we can't help but feel at ease within ourselves. And we have information design to thank for that. Take a look at this picture. This is an ordinary corridor. It just has multiple visual cues that we use in the world of information design to make it easy for the user to navigate, whether it's the bold color, the text that aids you, the icon to break the language barrier, or the actual graphic of the arrow. Wherever you're from in the world, whether you're a newcomer, whether you're a local, anybody can understand. Right this way, ma'am. From a distance or close up, you understand where you need to go. That's the beauty of information design, especially in wayfinding. But this is just a corridor. Think about a whole building. Take a look at the Calgary Central Library. This is one of my favorite spots in Calgary, not just because I'm an interior designer by blood, but because it is one of the most easy on the eyes buildings that we have in this city. It brings a sense of ease to you. You're calm, you feel serene, and that's really what a library is meant to be, a space where you can just lock in, focus on what you need to do, and really just be at peace with yourself. So take a look at that column. We have information being placed on two hexagons. Kind of an odd shape for wayfinding, but it does go with the overall aesthetic of the actual interior. Interior design and information design are working hand in hand here to send along different information to the actual user. Not only do we have the hexagonal shape, but we also have the font. Now, in a library, you're not going to see something that looks real funky, right? You got to keep it subtle, okay? We have to maintain that theme. So when you think about that, the font that they're going to choose to display that information is something that has to feel part of the story that they're trying to tell. It's not random, it's not an afterthought, it's just simple, and it complements the overall space. Two fields working together to ease the process. Not only that, but you have the material selection. Now, in the world of interior design, material selection is like giving candy to a baby. It ties the whole project together. We spend hours putting it together. But really, when you're thinking about information design, we don't want to distract the user. We want the information to be seamlessly presented to the person experiencing the overall space, and we don't want them to feel confused or lost. Maintain that train of thought all the way through. The information is placed on those wooden hexagonal panels, and you can see the wood throughout the rest of the interiors. That is how you create a seamless space from A to Z. Not only that, but we also have the icons. So even if you can't see, maybe you can't read English, that's the universal icon for washrooms, right? Right here. And the cool thing about it is they know out of all the information that's presented there, a washroom is probably the most looked up one, right? That's the most common one. People want to know where it's located. So what they've done to emphasize that is they use the power of color to highlight this particular icon. Not a neon pink, just a simple pale blue. Speaking of color, the actual column itself is also not fighting for your attention. It's just a simple space that you can display information on and let the rest do the talking. But here's the thing about information design. Sometimes it's not just subtle. Sometimes it demands your attention. It screams for validation. And we usually see that in the field of graphic design. So graphic design is something that we're quite familiar with. We see it when we have marketing or, we want to sell an idea, sometimes to send along a message. And in this case, it was a COVID-19 poster. Well, we've all been there and the pandemic is past us, thank God. But what we had to do to send the message across that please stay away from each other, please don't get too close, is use colors. Red, green, universal, stay, go, don't do this, please do that. The way that they've used it is simple. Short and sweet. I always tell my students, keep it short and sweet. Another wonderful thing about information is that they're trying to aid it as much as possible for the user. So if you don't know how to visualize 2 meters, don't worry about it. There's an icon right there letting you know that if you can visualize a bicycle, that's good enough, right? A bike between 2 people. And it's not a vibrant color. It's a pale blue, simply just assisting the information being passed along. It's in plain sight, but it does not scream for your attention. It's just there to help you absorb it in the best way possible. And last but not least, diversity. Here's the thing about COVID. For some time, we thought it was targeting a specific age group, a specific gender group. Wasn't really the case. And we found that out through multiple different researches, right? But what they did here is they wanted to pass the message along that this isn't us problem. This isn't targeting a specific individual or a specific background. So the characters that they've used in the ad are nothing alike. Everybody comes from a different part of the world, multiple genders, easy on the eyes. There's a subtle message there, but it is very effective. More importantly, it's inclusive. Inclusivity is important because you don't always know where people are coming from. You don't know their story. And as a designer, we have to think about everybody. So take the C-Train map, for example. Inclusivity is important here because you could be a local using the transit system for the first time, or you can be a tourist trying to navigate Calgary. Calgary isn't that big of a city, but a map is a map and it has to be very clear for you to understand. So of course we have those 2 lines. The red line is red and the blue line is blue. Short and sweet, right? Another wonderful thing is clarity. Someone had to sit behind a desk and think about how much is too far in terms of spacing between the stations and how much is too close. We don't really take a minute to appreciate that. We just see a map and we say, okay, cool, this is where I am and this is where I need to be, right? Wrap it up. But someone actually spent hours trying to execute this effortless design. And that's why it's in plain sight. It's just never really appreciated. Another very important factor is consistency, not just in info design, in all the design disciplines. Consistency to tell a story, to shape an experience, that sense of clarity, that sense of cohesiveness is something we crave as designers. We want to make sure that our story makes sense. And when we have it in wayfinding systems, it gives that user experience the ease that they crave. Last but not least, labels. everywhere, literally. So you have the northeast heading to the west, northwest heading to the south. Again, Calgary is not that big of a city, but the way that they've designed it is very easy to follow through. Now, web design, well, let's just say it's information design done neatly. Web design can be very creative, but it is filled with information that the user is trying to absorb. So the way to do it, or the right way to do it, is to think about organization. Categories, clear categories. Before you travel and when you get there, what to do next. Then you have subcategories. Terminal maps, right? If you're new to the airport, or maybe you've been before, but now you kind of feel lost, you go to the website and everything is plain and simple for you. All of this information is easy to understand. That's design in plain sight. Again, we don't really acknowledge it and we don't really appreciate it, but because it's easy for us, it's almost like we forget to do so. The cool thing about the YYC website is it actually takes you into a user experience format. So it's UX design as well. You have the gates, you have icons, all letting you navigate your way through the space. The map zooms in once you want to click on your gate. It gives you a full-on rundown of where you need to go. This is all information. It's just done in a creative manner. Aesthetics and functionality, they go hand in hand in interior design. And information design, when it collaborates with any other design discipline, it's the exact same case. Not only that, but once you get to D70, you can see other icons letting you know, if you see a Hudson, you're close. If you see a Timmy's, you're almost there. That's the ease behind information design. So I'll leave you with this thought. You don't notice information design. You don't question it. You just move through your life with ease. And that's the beauty of it. There's a sense of responsibility, but that's just designing in plain sight. You don't need the pat on the back. You just need it to work, and you can call it a day. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Scott Reid, and I am the Visual Merchandising Manager at IKEA. Our mission at IKEA is to create a better everyday life for the many people. The everyday is very often the thing we rush to get through, riddled with mundane, repetitive tasks, gym, tan, laundry. We have a tendency not to pay much attention. In my work as the Visual Merchandising Manager at IKEA, I am constantly managing attention. In life, aren't we all? Every day we are affected by design. Our attention has become a commodity. It is pulled at, interrupted, and disrupted at every turn. Many years ago, I read the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. For years, it has been a guide for me to be more intentional with my everyday, to observe myself, my habits, the things I do over and over again, and ask myself, is this satisfying? As humans, we are very good at going around the problem. The big rock in the path, the shoe pile at the door. We make do and we go around, and rarely do we actually study it. Rarer still do we do something about it. Having that difficult conversation, wondering why we need all those shoes, and if there is or could be a solution, or gathering our neighbors to ask for help to move that rock. At IKEA, we want to make make it easy and as possible and as accessible as possible to take action. Good design, the kind you don't notice, the kind you maybe feel something pleasurable in, doesn't happen by accident. And if you pay attention, you can be present to the painful ones. If you can be present to your pain and your discomfort, you can begin to engage more with your life. I want to try something with you all. I hope you can indulge me. Can everybody please take a deep breath in? Inhale. Now hold. Hold. Hold as long as you can. Keep holding. Holding. Good. Great. That was uncomfortable, wasn't it? You just did something really uncomfortable together. That was an experience. Congratulations. It's not so hard doing the uncomfortable. So do we ever stop to think about what it is that we're giving our attention to? What thoughts are we having, and where are those thoughts from? Is it possible to change the world by becoming more aware of what and how we engage with the world? I believe it is, and I think IKEA does too.
Can you spot the link between food and climate change? Energy and poverty? Livelihoods and refugees? Worldwide, humanity is facing major threats. Fortunately, even simple changes can create big transformations. At the IKEA Foundation, we're on a mission to improve the lives of vulnerable children by enabling their families to create sustainable livelihoods and fight and cope with climate change. This requires big transformations in the way we live, move, and produce and consume energy, food, and goods. At the IKEA Foundation, we're working with partners to show that even simple solutions can create big transformations in a way that is just, equitable, and supports livelihoods in the most vulnerable communities.
Together,
we can change the story of our planet for good.
IKEA knows that profit gives us resources, and IKEA believes in leading by example. We donate a percentage of our profits to the IKEA Foundation, who in turn work with hundreds of partners to help those in need. It is the spirit of why we do what we do. Creating a better everyday life for the many truly is the many. So how do we do it? It starts with democratic design, and it hinges on an agreement. You do a little, we do a little. We sell a wide range of well-designed, functional home furnishing products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. But it's even more than that, because it's not just what we sell, it's also how we do it. We are constantly on the way, always learning, always listening, and collaborating and innovating as we go. While we start with cost, it isn't at any cost. We understand that the earth needs us to be collaborators, stewards, and that means being conscious of our impact. Calgary is one of the sunniest places of the major cities in Canada. We have invested in solar panels on our roof, and we've invested in 2 wind farms in southern Alberta. This helps us offset our carbon footprint. Sustainability is a big part of what we focus on. It's part of that democratic design. So we have a base range, and all of our products of that base range are designed with that democratic design process. I'm sure you all know the products of our base range. You know and love them, I hope. And we collaborate with others to create unique, limited collections. We know that our differences make us stronger, and by collaborating with others, we can learn, share, and create more opportunities. The Mavin collection is one example that shows our values clearly. It consists of so much more than decoration: innovative materials, impressive craftsmanship, and our designers collaborating with the women making the products, providing meaningful work for those who most need it. So while one vase won't change the world, 10,000 might. This is economy of scale. The many might not have a lot of money individually, but together we are wealthy beyond measure. The everyday life of the many people is our focus and reason. We study it deeply around the world in every city. A great deal of study and observation goes into the work that we do, and home visits have been done. We do home visits here in Calgary every year, and we aspire to do even more seasonally. Why? Because we want to know how you really live. We need to know what your everyday lives are like so that we can help you make them better. In every IKEA store, there exists a communication and interior design team. We have a team of about 18. My manager is sitting in the audience today. Thank you for being here. And we have so much work to do in the store. Our job is to present the range, and the range is our identity. We have many tools to do that, too many to go into here. It's a big job, and it requires many people working together to do it. We need to provide space for our customers to get through the store. We also need space for our goods to get through the store, and our coworkers and our cleaners. So we need to make it as easy and intuitive as possible. But we also need to delight, inspire you with solutions that are meaningful and relevant. I'd like to clear up a common misconception about the IKEA stores. It is not a maze. It is a labyrinth. There is a difference. A labyrinth by design is meant to get you through a space all the way from the beginning to the end. So if you were to stay on the main aisle and not take any shortcuts, that's the key. You will get through the entire store and you will see every part of the home in your journey. Finding peaks and layouts, or peaks and valleys in the layout, is something else that we work on, because we don't want you to live beyond your means. We want you to enjoy your life. The things that are truly important: a great sleep, a beautiful meal shared with loved ones, a quiet moment alone to pause and reflect on what you're grateful for, sitting in a field with friends, looking at clouds. These are the things that make our everyday. Now, here are a few of some of the installations we've done in the store. There's just two of my favorites. This was one of the Markerad collection that we did with Rowaz Abo. And it came with, like, we had to have crowd control. There was a lineup outside. We needed a big space. It sold out in a day. It was incredible. And it was a lot of fun. And this was one of my favorite displays. We had a mirror problem, too many mirrors. It was shortly after COVID, and we used the creative design process to actually create a message that we thought that people really needed to hear at that time. People had been locked up in their homes, and that affected us all in many different ways. So we wanted something fun and unique so that people could look at themselves and their loved ones again. So a big part of the job is about creating these experiences, because it's the experiences that make every design better.
How many first time here in this building today? How many got lost trying to find the front door? So when you said labyrinth, Jen, I kind of started to think about this building as well as a bit of a labyrinth. I titled this slide deck Introvert Extrovert. This came out of the design process that we've been involved in on this project for about 6 years now. I am one of a team of many. My name's Jonny Hehr. I'm a partner and architect with GGA. On this project in particular, we're also partnered with KPMB. And we have a great group, and I can honestly say in the 6 years that we've been working on this project, we've become friends through that process, working with the Contemporary Calgary group and David. And if none of you have ever been to a look party, put it on your calendar, because that's a good time. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to flip through these slides really quick to give you a brief history on this project. And David Down is in the room, who can probably correct me on anything I get wrong. So this project was one of our centennial projects in 1967, but it was actually a project that spawned out of what's called the Massey Foundation, or Massey Commission, which was back in 1951. This was a commission that was done by the Canadian government to really start to explore what is Canadian arts and culture. So in 1967, this project was done. It was a award given to Macmillan And Jack Long was the part of that, and the architect on this project. And this project has probably, one of the best examples of brutalist architecture. And brutalist architecture was really about architecture that wanted to be devoid of any kind of history. It didn't want reference, And this, as a planetarium, it started to get me think about what does it mean for design in plain sight. This building was really made to look outwards. It was a time, 1967, we're talking about the space race. We're talking about, an infatuation with what's out there. And this building really started to become an experience in itself. And you can see it here, like the exploration, and really when you think about what was done in 1967 with these board-formed walls and these battered walls and almost this tent-like structure in the middle. The whole building is somewhat of an introvert in the way that it doesn't really interact with what's going on around it, but it was made to look outwards. So we as our team started to talk about this building, we realized that this is an opportunity to turn this introvert into an extrovert. This building, unfortunately, was cut off during its process and its life, but this building has been through an evolution from day one. It's gone through multiple changes. And we have some great pictures in here from when it was the TELUS World Science Center. The building had the aircraft museum here at one time as well. And you can see that the building was really a building in the round. It was meant to be in a landscape. Right now, the city has kind of collapsed upon it and cut off portions of it and built parkades up against it, or parking stalls up against it. But really, we found, it's not flipping, there we go. There's the amputated section that was cut off and how everything's been shown back in the day. And this is actually the Observatory Theatre, which was up on the top, and we've now converted that into another art gallery space for contemporary Calgary, where it has some great mixed media. We have some images later on, and if you can explore it, I would encourage you to do so. This building has lived many lives. You can see it here with some of the interventions when it was a science center. And this stage that we're standing on right now, we brought this stage back to life. And that was our only image that we had of it. We just completed the stage about 2 years ago and just tried to use that as our guiding light for it. This is an original view of what that building was. And this is what it currently is today. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey on what we did as a design process. We really had to start to define some of the challenges that you all experienced here tonight, which is, where is the front door? And it's not the fault of the building that it's hard to find the front door. It's everything else collapsing around it. So we started to look at how could we return this building back to a building in the round. And I have to say that this is the second version of this design that we've done. The original design was completed back in 2019, and you'll actually see a model of it at the front door. And we say as a team that we've never been so happy that a project wasn't funded. And we say that because it gave time for contemporary Calgary to exist in the space, to use the space, to get to know the space, and to actually create more reverence for the space. And it gave us time as the architects to understand how contemporary Calgary was using it and really what were the priorities as we move forward. We started this project with a very intense program, but the program was done without, and no disrespect to the program, but it was done through, traditional art gallery spaces. And there's nothing traditional within this space, which is actually the part that makes it the most exciting. This was our original concept back in 2019. And this is the view looking from the river. And it had some great potential, but it was also turning its back a little bit on what was the original building. So as we started to understand this building more, Bruce Kuwabara says our design process is part archaeology, part renovation, and part addition. We are the anchor to kind of the two cultural counterpoints of the East Village and the West Village. And the West Village really doesn't have that living room yet as a community. And we really took that on as a design group that we wanted to create the living room for the West End. This is our party sketch, which for those of you who don't speak Arca speak, party sketch is basically just a little scribble that we keep referencing back to. But this says a lot. This is a scribble that starts to understand how we can navigate this building. And it is about returning everybody to the central part of this building and starting to use that as a bit of a pinwheel on how you can navigate and make your way through. Hopefully that party starts to become a little more in plain sight as we work through this. Here's a plan of our new scheme, for lack of better terms. This is that pinwheel. This is the entry door that you walk through today, but this is our new entry plaza, which is our new living room for the West End. A big part of this site was how do you connect through the site? Because it's not just about the East, it's about the West. And how do we bring people through and actually start to create a public space, which is the lower floor, and create a pinwheel in the middle, which starts to allow you to move and into the different exhibit spaces. You can see too here, a lot of those additions that were put on are now removed, and we've pulled back and pushed on the green edge, which is 6th Avenue. And the city has been an incredible partner in this project. They recognize that 6th Avenue is a bit of a beast that needs to be tamed. There's a project that's occurring along this end down here by the river, which coincidentally is occurring at the same time, so we've been having some great collaboration there. This is a rendering of our new concept, which starts to return the building into this park landscape, which we've actually used the term couloir throughout this process. We have great public spaces, which the building is engaging with, but our new additions, that's the extrovert portion. And actually, I heard a term this week on the CBC called ambivert, which I think is actually the true personality of this building when we're done. We wanted to create space. We didn't want to compete with what the original building was. We wanted to reveal what the original building is. So everything that we've created is a counterpoint. The original walls are solid and battered. The new walls that we're creating are glazed. And that's to create a counterpoint in materiality, but also to start to show what the building has on the inside versus what's happening on the outside. So it's really about, we're creating these vessels for public space and for the living room to occur. This is our new lower floor. The train tracks kind of run right along here. We have an incredible education space to bring school bus after school bus of kids here to create the next lovers of art in our city. This is a space that we affectionately have termed the grotto, and that will be a new, beautiful, round gallery space, which, again, when you show these spaces to artists, David says the anticipation of these spaces has just been incredible from an artist's perspective. This is that new view from the east side when you come off the train. This is our new living room. This will all be a free space with a second floor cafe, which looks out onto the tracks so you can actually experience that train passing you by. This new education space down on the lower floor with views out to that new couloir landscape. As you move up through the space, you're now on the second floor with the cafe and the little step out. You can hopefully feel the wind pass you by as the train goes. We wanted to embrace every aspect of this site. We're also returning the dome back to a flat floor dome, which will be an incredible multimedia experience, and removing all the tiered seating. The original dome for that space was actually a flat floor. This is a new view from the west with that education area on the bottom, our new Class A galleries here on the second floor, and the new event space up on the top floor. This project was also about creating new opportunities to appreciate this building. As you move through the second floor, you are walking adjacent to those great battered walls with a reciprocating glass wall, which starts to reflect and honor the original building. This is the observatory gallery that I mentioned earlier, with one of the multimedia shows within it. And then this is that great rooftop deck, which has direct views onto the original dome and views out to the mountains. This isn't the animated version, but we have a cool animated version of this slide. But this is the new dome space where we're going to have some incredible art installations within there. The technology within that dome is going to be world class with the new grotto gallery below.
Well, thank you all for your presentations. Okay, so now we're going to weave those threads together. And I want to start actually going back, Rosie, to your presentation. At the end of it, you talked about the invisibility of design, and like when design is successful, that it becomes invisible. And I guess I want to sort of just ask you, as a group, is that what you define as like a successful designed project from your own perspective? Is it about that invisibility, that like the lack of friction or whatever, or just how you would really sort of say like, I designed that well?
I think it depends on the field. I think with information design, we crave that subtlety, and we crave that kind of, we want to be hidden, we want to provide, but we're not demanding anybody's, appreciation. In interior design, a lot of our projects, they need to be recognizable so that we can make a name for ourselves. You have a bunch of up and coming, young designers that say, how do I make my portfolio stand out? How do I be the next Gaudi of this generation? How do I kind of, how do I make people notice me as a designer? So they don't want to be hidden. That's the last thing that they want to do. And I think for graphic design, that field as well, there's nothing about it that wants to be kind of tucked away. Graphic design is meant to be quite bold and in your face and very kind of attractive looking. But info design, I just noticed it's a very subtle one. It's always there, but it doesn't really like the spotlight. It just wants to do its job and call it a day. So yeah, what do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that when it comes to interior design, there are some things that just need to be natural, where you don't notice certain things. But with product design, I think that it needs to tell a story. Like a product, you can kind of discover things. A cup that has a little slot at the bottom so that when you are washing it, you don't know it's there, but it doesn't collect water. And so you can see it ultimately, so it's not necessarily invisible, and you don't notice the puddle on the floor, but it's been designed well so that you don't notice the puddle on the floor.
I would say that design for me is actually when people take ownership of it themselves. So when people feel comfortable enough within a space that they take ownership of it, it's not about me at all. It's actually about how people experience the space. And also, if the owner calls me back, that's always for another job, that's always a good, indicator of good design. But really it is about when people start to defend the space as their own, that I think is a great indicator of when you've succeeded.
So users, ultimately, you're all sort of speaking about users, right? In the end, is like who we're designing for. And so in service design, where I come from, that's like, we're doing a lot of empathy work to understand. So how are you trying to feed in an understanding of who it is that you're doing the project for? Because the projects change, right? And who you're designing for changes. So what processes are you doing to sort of make sure that you're not just imagining who it is that you're designing for, but trying to really bring the reality so that you can get that ownership in the end, or so you can make sure that product does deliver, right, as things goes along?
Well, I have the fortunate luxury of designing lots of different spaces, from schools to art galleries to residential buildings. And it is about that user. It is about understanding how people are going to experience the space, but also what is the comfort level that you have to achieve. But it's a different process depending on how you ultimately are delivering the space and the design. I'm struggling a little bit to put it into words right now, but which is unfortunate because I'm on a panel. But yeah, come back to me.
One of the things that we look at when we're designing spaces, because we design for the many, and so we have what we call a wide range and a deep range. So we know that not everybody has the same amount of money for income, and we know that people don't always share the same aesthetic values either. So we have different style groups that we use typically for, and within that there's different colors within those style groups that we use. And because everyone is going to like something different, and ultimately we've designed the range so that it all works together, no matter what your preferences are. So it is more for the many, and we'd like to keep it simple with things that everybody really needs to live. A mattress, a pot to cook in, like very simple things. It's not luxury goods. It's because it's for the many.
And that kind of speaks, I think, to a lot of the information, right? The iconography. How do we sort of remove language from the equation? Are there certain hurdles in terms of that when you're designing for many people, different sets of people? How do you sort of ultimately, design is about making choices, right? Sometimes there can be tension between a choice that we're making for one user group or another. What do you employ to help you make those sorts of choices, to sort of navigate one way or another when you maybe have conflict between the needs of one user group or another, or the expectations of the users that might be using the building and the expectations of a client, and maybe the budgets that they allow, right? Sometimes these things can very much be at odds with one another. So what do you employ in your practice to sort of navigate those tensions?
I think it's hard to really design for everybody. I don't think a lot of people, know how hard it can be to kind of cater to the many instead of just the few. You get clients where you have I think interior design, I think residential projects, you got one client and they tell you what they want and the aesthetic that they're going for, and you're like, cool, I know how to cater to you. But then you think of something like a COVID-19 poster and you're like, oh God, everybody has to understand this. This cannot simply be to just one person. And just because I understand it doesn't mean that everybody's going to understand it. So it definitely makes things more complicated. But I think with info design, the priority here is functionality. It has to have a purpose. It has to make sense. Information design is the art of making sense. So you really have to think about, does this, is this going to be readable to the masses? Am I targeting the masses here? Am I too in my head? For me, I ask people that are not in our field, and I'm like, do you see what I'm seeing? And a lot of the times huh? A lot of the times they're just kind of like, no. And I'm like, okay, so it's just me. Okay, cool. And that, you go back to the drawing board because of that, but you need that kind of opinion and you need that kind of analysis to really help you navigate. Everybody can understand what I'm trying to paint versus I understand what I'm presenting, right? So Jonny? I would say constraints. We often use the term multifunctional versus multi-useless. So when you start to define constraints within design, it starts to allow all of the needs of a project, create a hierarchy, but you start to really be able to zero in. I wouldn't ever say that there's necessarily conflict. I don't know if that's the right word. It is really about defining constraints within a project so that you can start to understand what you're trying to achieve with each design move.
I think that people need to see themselves in a design. And part of how we do that is the research that we do in the city of Calgary. And knowing who lives here. Part of that then goes into some of our room settings, where our room settings are very functional and give you an idea of who lives there and what time of day it is and what they're eating for dinner. Whereas the many, you can find that in the store in our what we call the compacts, which is where you have all of the furniture, all the sofas. All the sofas are together and they're all pared down. There's maybe a couple cushions on it, but you don't really see the personality. So it gives people room to see themselves in it.
And so you do this research, you come to the table, you've put it together in the way that you hope meets the different expectations, the different needs, the different constraints of the project. But often, I think design is a process, right? It's not done. Like you're saying, Jonny, this building, one of the benefits that you had, and it's very different than probably a lot of the projects that you end up getting to do, compared to maybe, say, information design, where we can change things out maybe a little bit easier than sort of taking the building down and doing it over again, right? But are there ways in which you try to build in iteration, prototyping experience, and allow for that process of change in how you're maybe designing that piece on the floor?
We do prototyping. If we are looking at making a change in the layout, we will hang a curtain and see what will happen if we put a wall here. So it's a simple prototype without putting the wall up. I mean, we have a little bit of room to play within the building of IKEA because we take down walls and put up walls all the time. Sometimes we do it over and over and over again. But it's about observing people in the space and seeing what are the questions that they're asking when they get to this space, and how can we solve that for them.
Right. Yeah.
Architects love models. We iterate through lots of different tools, and there's lots of architects in the room who know all these tools. The ability to now fly through projects and really put ourselves within spaces, it's still not quite right, but I was actually saying earlier to Jen, I came from an industrial design background, which if you wanted a chair, you built the chair. It was one-to-one scale. Now, we don't have that benefit in architecture, but we're getting very close. And the iterative process allows us to test things out, allows us to put owners and user groups within those spaces. And it's it's a space like this. The benefit of renovations is that you actually get to experience it before you've ever done anything. So it is a very impactful piece that a lot of people can embrace, because we walked through the space without the stage, and it's a different room without the stage. The Flanagan Gallery, which is the shed off the back, when that wasn't a gallery, it was just a big room. The minute you make it into a gallery and it's now holding art, like that's a different space, and you get the benefit of seeing the before and after. So actually, renovations, I think, are very satisfying as an architect, to be able to bring that new life and adaptive reuse to a project.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think with information design, information is very, very much like design, ever evolving and ever changing. So, new things come to light all the time. And kind of following along with like the COVID example, it was like daily, right? We were kind of tracking the progress of it daily. So yeah, we have to leave wiggle room to adjust, to tweak, and even the way that we share our information. I mean, like TikTok wasn't a thing a few years ago, and now it's like where I watch the news. So I think, the millennials and the Gen Z might get me, but it's, it's a form of sharing information, right? And we didn't really have that a long time ago. So it's also adjusting that information to be shared on that particular platform, and having that wiggle room to be able to do so successfully.
So have you ever gotten it wrong and willing to share with the audience how you got it wrong, and the learning maybe that you took from that, or like a way that you were able to build what it was that you learned in that into future projects?
Have you failed?
Have you failed? We've all failed.
I feel
Are you willing to admit it to a room of
I feel like I get it
amazing
wrong all
humans?
the time. And the wonderful thing about working at IKEA is that we believe that making mistakes is how we learn.
Right.
And so when we make a mistake, we then can correct it. And it's the correcting where the learning happens. And so it's a gift to be able to do that. And so I find myself constantly growing and developing as a designer because I get to make so many mistakes. Thank you.
Do you have any specifics you want to share? That's totally fine.
So I would say that I hope I'm okay to share this. We recently did a renovation. It was last year. We changed our bedroom department, and in the bedroom department, we actually have wardrobes. And wardrobes are big and tall, and a big and tall thing on a wall can feel quite imposing when you're walking along the main aisle. And we actually put the walls a little bit too close to the main aisle, and so the overviews were actually compromised, and we were like, we got to correct that really quick. It was really easy to see once the walls were in. And even though we had 3D renderings and all of those things, you don't get that feeling when you're walking through the store as you do with the 3D renderings. So it was a good learning experience, and I'm looking at setbacks in a whole new way as a result.
I put lights on a building, and lights burn out. And if one light burns out, and if you have a bit of a twitch when there's one light that burns out, that'll bug you forever. So I've held off on putting more lights on buildings right now because of that. And often when we're working through the building process, we always kind of say, if there is something that comes up, make it look like we meant to do it. So do your best with the situation that's presented and make it look like you meant to do it. And, I would say it works most of the time. I would say also too, on the flip side of that, happy mistakes are a great thing that we often embrace, and will take credit for saying, yeah, we meant to do that.
Yeah.
But, and within renovations, I can think back to the Ampersand, which is an office building here. That building, when we started to pull down the ceilings, we had no idea what was there. And there was all these incredible beams that had been cut off, and the life of that building started to reveal itself a little bit. And then we painted it all and showed it all off. And that was one of those moments where, you know, it was a happy mistake that we had no idea that what was going to be there, and what was there was fantastic. And so make it look like you meant to do it, and take credit for it when it's done.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to make mistakes to learn. Absolutely. Like Jennifer said, I think it's interior design, info design, all of them really. Like, if you're not making a mistake, then nothing really about who you are as a designer evolves either. Like, you're not going to learn from being a perfectionist all the time. And I mean, trust me, like, being a perfectionist is exhausting, and not being able to kind of take a constructive criticism quite well, and kind of seeing every mistake as like a devastating failure. It's not real. Like, these are just redirections, just redirect, tweak, pivot. And I think even just integrating those words in your vocabulary, I tell my students all the time, this is just a minor readjustment. Like, this is not wrong. Like, don't dwell. Because I think, you know, once they see the red Sharpie being pulled out, it's like a nightmare situation for them. So it's not that deep. It's not that serious. It is just a simple adjustment, a tweak. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you grow. So yeah.
So on that growth piece, I think a big part of different aspects of design is also finding newness, right? Like, where do we find those like moments of inspiration and innovation, true innovation, bringing newness to a project? And some of that can just be, it can be a recombination of things we've learned from the past. It can be diving into the history of a building and finding the stage. This is new, but it is also old, right? Where do you go for those moments of true sort of like inspiration? We're taking a left turn instead of a right here. Those moments that just really sort of take you down a path, and maybe you find some new and novel way to have people wayfind in a building. The very first time that a transit map was laid out, and we didn't just put the actual distance between places, and we put them just dots in a row to give people a sense of order and these kinds of things. Where do you reach for those moments of big innovation?
Personally, I always reach for nature, for quiet moments. But in the creative process, observation is a really good way of like getting inspiration. Watching someone interact with something that you've done is inspiring. And then brainstorming is also so much fun. Brainstorming and just being willing to like go out there and say the most unreasonable things can be super fun and super inspiring. And you know, it might be ridiculous and that you might not actually do it, but being willing to go there and like be silly is also super inspiring.
I think if you're seeking newness, you're never going to find it. Through the process of the work will create newness if that's what the process is going to guide you to.
The conditions.
Yeah, the condition of it.
Yeah.
I think if we try to create newness where it's never going to reveal itself, it's coming through the process and through the different people in the room. You know, in architecture there can be a lot of egos and a lot of hierarchy, but I think if you're always just looking for the best idea rather than who it came from, then you'll find kind of newness if it's there. But I think that a project often, if it doesn't, and this ARCA speak, sorry, if it doesn't want to be new, it's not going to be new. For this project in particular, we weren't seeking new forms. It was actually just through the process and through the program and responding to the site that we created the forms. there wasn't a preconceived idea of what should be there. Right. And through that, I think that we've actually created somewhat newness, but it was through the process that we did that.
There's also looking at the problems. So IKEA actually has a company called Innovation Ventures, and it actually takes a look at what are the problems, for example, in the manufacturing process. And if the dyeing of cotton is actually toxic, they are now looking at, okay, how can we make this so that it isn't toxic? And what are the things that we can do? Is there bioengineering that we could do? And looking at those kinds of other fields as a way to solve the problem. So it's about looking outside of yourself as well and outside of your field and connecting with someone else and collaborating. Even on the manufacturer's floor, the manufacturers might have a problem with a certain design, and they might actually have the solution because they're the ones making it. And so sometimes that newness, which isn't really new, is just solving another problem.
Yeah, or learning from the processes of others, right? Like I think that speaks to even why we have this as like a closing panel for Design Week, and there's been so many different styles of design, fashion designers, information design, right? Like these, we have so much to learn from each other in the processes and the ways we go about solving our problems that potentially we can bring those in, and it leads to different results. Yeah. We will get to just some audience questions for the last 5 minutes here, but just before we get there, one condition I think that's like on everyone's mind and I just want to sort of like end my questions of you with is climate, sustainability. I think like this is just, it has to be a part of the conditions of every project. We have to have that in everything that we're doing. And so what are you doing to sort of, are there things that you're doing to try and bring that forward in your own practice, to make it, put that Post-it note on the project to make sure that it doesn't fall away as a condition, that does inform the process of getting to those end results? Is there anything that you're doing to sort of bring that sustainability into your practice?
For me, I think I'm kind of lucky because I have young, eager minds, kind of all eyes on me. Like what you're saying is, we'll take your word for it kind of thing. And that's a blessing because sustainability is an issue that the younger generation is very vocal about. They're not shy about it. They'll tell you like we need help and we want to be a part of the solution. So I think for me, it was when I came into a position of power, when you're teaching young minds, it really is a position of power and you don't want to take that for granted. So I took the time to really become LEED certified, so to kind of get that sustainable accreditation. And then every assignment that I do assign to my students, we look into that that approach of sustainability. So we'll look into like the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations really looked into. And I tell them, okay, how can we develop it further? So this was, stated a while back. What has changed? Has any action been taken? What action can be taken? Really just kind of question them so that they're questioning themselves. So it doesn't just, we've heard it so much that it's like white noise at some point. It's like numb and it goes over their heads. And we need to kind of fine tune the idea so that we're not just talking about it, we're actually encouraging them to take action on the actual issue. And that's how I'm dealing with it. How are you doing with it?
So I have a personal approach, and then IKEA definitely has a strategy. And my personal approach is by looking at my everyday life, and I look at the things that I do over and over again. A few years ago, I was looking at the amount of plastic that I was consuming and bringing home from the grocery store, and I was like, I want to stop. I want to stop with this plastic. And so it made I invested in glass containers, and I didn't get rid of all the plastic ones I had, but I did invest in the glass containers, and I started looking at the grocery stores that I was going to and how much plastic my grocery stores were using. And that meant actually finding some other grocery stores that maybe don't use as much plastic and are actually cheaper. And more local. So there were benefits that I found along the way. And it's in the everyday life that I think that, we can make small changes, but doing nothing is, that's nothing. So IKEA is really focusing on doing some things, investing in the solar panels, investing in wind farms, as well as looking at the manufacturing process and the products that we create and make.
So do you find your personal experience with, say the pains even, it can be work to have glass jars and do these things. Do you find that then feeds back into your work and in certain ways and sort of the results of your work, or you're approaching the work differently because of the experience of maybe how much we are putting onto the consumer rather than sort of the company sort of side, and how can we maybe make that easier for folks, or that sort of side of things?
I had an interaction with a customer on the floor, and she was standing, she had her cart filled with glass containers, and she's standing looking at it, and she was standing looking, and I was kind of waiting for her to get by because I needed to take a picture of a display that we had just finished. So I was like, what's happening here? And so I said, can I help you with something? And she said, well, I'm really wondering, I've got 2 boys, they're 11 and they're 8, and I want to invest in these glass containers, but are they gonna destroy them? And she had a valid point. And I was like, yeah, young boys, and if they've got a lot of energy, chances are those glass containers are gonna break. But here's a metal one in the same family. The lids are interchangeable, so you can buy the glass ones for maybe you and your husband, and these metal ones for your sons, and there you have a more sustainable solution. She was wanting to make the decision, and my experience actually helped her with her experience.
Through the lens of architecture, there's a lot of different ways that we look at it. Right now, I will say a lot of government funding is guiding innovation in sustainability, which is great. If you put incentives on things, and that's where the money is, it is going to push owners to pursue, funding for that. I will acknowledge that this building itself is a big concrete bunker. The walls are 12 inches thick. There's very little insulation in a lot of areas. So as part of the retrofit to this building, we're actually insulating a lot of the outer walls, trying to be respectful of the character of the building. Right. I also acknowledge that we've created some glass boxes on the outside of the building. So we have very expensive glass that will be used on this project. And we're also looking at geothermal for heating. And so it's a multi-pronged approach, as it is with many architecture projects. And really it comes down to the owner's ambition. We as architects can do our best to inform through that design process, but ultimately it comes down to the owner's ambition and how much they want to invest. And we have great projects that take on a life of their own because they start to become, civic projects are like this one are often funded again through that funding model. Private projects, depending if the owner is going to hold on to it for a long time, they can actually amortize that additional cost because we can't beat around the bush that sustainable projects often cost more upfront.
Right. So. Sure. Yes, I think we're hitting time. We like to talk. Designers like to talk, and we're going to stick around and talk. I'm going to give you that. I'm going to hand it over to Shannon. We're not going anywhere. We're actually all going to go outside and we're going to talk to each other and we're going to learn from each other's practices and hopefully go from there. And I hope you have all had an incredible design week. And thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our panelists for putting together these incredible presentations. I'm going to pass you to the brains behind, what's happened this week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. That was really, really wonderful. I appreciate it. What a great way to wrap up Design Week. So hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Lanigan. I'm the director of Design Week and Design Talks. I'm not a designer. I'm a kinesiologist and a design strategist who's curious about how people move through space and place and how design affects well-being. I'm saying this so you know that you don't have to be a designer to appreciate or participate in Design Week. How many of you are from Calgary? Born and raised? Okay. Yeah. So, okay, born and raised, a few. How many are from here all the time? Yeah, full time? Yeah. Moved from other cities? Right. Okay. How many of you consider yourselves designers? Oh, we got a good contingency here. And have any of you attended a design week other than here in Calgary? A few. Okay, great. Now I'm going to pivot. How many of you learned something this week? I like that. Excellent. Incredible. Connection to space and place comes from sharing stories and sharing knowledge and sharing experiences. I encourage you to take the learnings from this week and tell someone else so that they can tell others and that we can start a ripple of pride and connection to design in this city. Calgary is ours collectively. And to be proud and show we want you to be proud and show others of why we are a blue sky city of big thinkers. If you liked being part of Design Week and want to do more, then join us for the love of design. Thank you.